My name is Sqn Ldr Rana Chhina, and I'm the secretary of the USI Center for Military History and Conflict Studies. And I'm very pleased to be here at the Brains Trust. It's a unique initiative that gets together people from a very diverse range of backgrounds to talk on an equally diverse range of subjects. And it's extremely informative, and it talks about issues that are both historically relevant as well as issues that have a very contemporary relevance as well. The United Service Institution of India, where I work, completed 150 years of its existence last year. And one of the unique legacies of this institution is the MacGregor Medal. And the MacGregor Medal has a very special affiliation to what was euphemistically known as the Great Game. And I will today be talking to you about this medal and its history and some of the recipients that won this unique award. So if we look at the map of India from by 1857 onwards, we can see that the British had advanced the land frontiers of their Indian empire to the foot of the Hindu Kush, following the annexation of the last independent Indian kingdom, that is of the Punjab, in 1849. Now, henceforth, British imperial concerns were centered on maintaining the security of their Indian possessions and making sure that the jewel in the crown remained securely in British hands. Now, the primary threat to India at this time was perceived to be from Imperial Russia, which was making great inroads into Central Asia, and the British were worried that India might be next on the list. Now, as a result, British policy to defend its imperial possessions from Russian invasion led to the geopolitical rivalry that came to be known as the Great Game. In effect, the Great Game was the name given to the moves and counter-moves carried out as part of this great rivalry, literally using the map of South Central Asia as a chessboard. And we must remember that at the time, China was a very weak power and was not considered to be a threat to India's security. Once the borders on the west had been delimited, at the turn of the century, the expedition was sent into Tibet in 1903, and subsequently, as we all are aware, the various border delimitations were carried out through the McMahon Line and the other agreements in the next half century. The term the Great Game itself gained prominence after it was used by Rudyard Kipling as central to the plot of the novel Kim, where the protagonist was trained in the arts of surveying and espionage and carried out his mission for British intelligence in the high Himalayas. Now, while Britain was secure in its mastery of the seas, the security of the ingress points through the mountain passes to the north and west of India were another matter altogether. And two wars were fought by Britain with Afghanistan to maintain it as a buffer state between India and Russia. And ultimately, the Durand Line, which finally established the border with Afghanistan in 1893, this firmly established this buffer between the great powers. And for a long time, a small building in Shimla, which was the head of the Indian Foreign Department, governed a vast territory stretching from Aden in the west to Malacca in the east. And this was the nerve center of the control of Imperial Britain over not just its Indian possessions, but was also the place from which the strategic defense of India was planned and executed. Now, in the 19th century, the two major power blocs that influenced world affairs were Great Britain and Tsarist Russia. And in 1885, a military skirmish that had occurred when Russian forces seized Afghan territory south of the Oxus River around an oasis at a place called Panjde, which is actually modern Seretabad in Turkmenistan. This set alarm bells ringing in London and in Shimla. And the Panjde incident, or the Panjde scare as it came to be known, sparked a major diplomatic crisis and rekindled British fears of a Russian threat to their Indian empire through Afghanistan. Conflicting Russian and British interests in Central and South Asia had for years been the cause of a virtual Cold War that came to be known euphemistically as the Great Game. And the Panjde incident came close to triggering full-scale armed conflict between the two powers. Following the incident, a number of protocols of the Anglo-Russian Boundary Commission were established to delineate the northern frontier of Afghanistan. And one of the aspects that had troubled the authorities in India was the lack of reliable information of these vast tracts of uncharted territory that lay along the remote and inaccessible frontiers of their Indian empire. The person who devoted his energies to filling this gap in imperial knowledge in his capacity as the Quartermaster General and originator of military intelligence in India was Major General Sir Charles Metcalfe MacGregor, the founder of the United Service Institution of India in 1870. Now, the USI had initially come up within the army headquarters at Shimla. And as I had mentioned earlier, it served in its early years as the back office of the intelligence branch of army headquarters. Military intelligence was then a function of the QMG, and MacGregor was responsible for laying its foundations in India. Now, MacGregor himself was an intrepid explorer with many important military reconnaissances and hazardous journeys in Central Asia to his credit. It is therefore only befitting that shortly after he passed away, in February 1887, the USI Council had instituted the MacGregor Memorial Medal in May 1887 to commemorate his memory. The criteria for award of the MacGregor Medal were laid out at a meeting held at Shimla on the 3rd of July 1888, which was presided over by the Commander-in-Chief in India, General Sir Frederick Roberts, with the Earl of Dufferin, who was then the Viceroy, as being present as the chief guest. Now, initially, this award was to be given only for significant military reconnaissance or journey of exploration or survey in remote areas of India, or in countries bordering or under the jurisdiction of India, which produced new information of value for the defense of India. The award was usually of a silver medal, but a gold medal could also be awarded in place of a silver one, or in addition to it, for specially valuable work. So officers, which includes VCOs and later JCOs, were awarded a large size medal, while other ranks received a smaller one. In the initial years, the medal was worn in uniform only by other ranks, but subsequently permission was given for it to be worn by officers as well. During the period of the British Raj, the MacGregor Medal became the de facto award of the Great Game, and it is the only medal from that era that still is awarded today. For over 150 years since its institution, the MacGregor Medal has been awarded to a long line of distinguished soldiers. And among its recipients were included names such as Sir Francis Younghusband, who received it in 1890, and he was the man who subsequently led the expedition into Tibet in 1903, and the famous Major General Orde Wingate, the military genius behind the Chindit operations on the Burma front in World War II. The first Indian soldier to get the award was Havildar, later Subedar Ramzan Khan of the 3rd Sikh Infantry Punjab Frontier Force, who was seen here in a 1911 print by A.C. Lobbett. Ramzan Khan received the medal for a military reconnaissance carried out during the Samana campaign on the northwest frontier in 1891. And I actually have a proprietary interest in his award because he belonged to what was my family regiment, which later became the 53rd Sikhs in 1903, 3rd Royal Battalion of the 12th 24th Regiment from 1922 to 47, and is now 5th Frontier Force in Pakistan. Subsequently, as opportunities for journeys of reconnaissance or exploration declined, in October 1986, the US High Council expanded the scope to include mountain and desert expeditions, river rafting, world cruises, polar expeditions, running or trekking across the Himalayas, and adventure flights amongst the eligibility criteria. First priority, however, continues to be that of military reconnaissance. And this decision regarding the expanded scope was again ratified by the Council in its meetings in December 1994 and 1997. Now, personnel of the armed forces, the Territorial Army, Reserve Force, Assam Rifles and militias are eligible for the award. Recommendations are received by the USI through the Joint Planning Committee. However, for non-military reconnaissance, recommendations can also be sent direct to the United Service Institution, and the award is decided by the US High Council. So far, in this last 150 years, 122 medals have been awarded. 7 gold medals to officers, 67 standard size silver medals, including 5 to VCOs or JCOs, and 48 reduced size silver medals to other ranks. And the last of these was awarded to another rank in 1944 and to an officer in 2013. Now you can see the obverse side of the medal has the effigy of Major General Sir Charles Metcalfe Macgregor, and the reverse depicts figures of army personnel belonging to various races that used to enlist in the army. The ribbon of the medal is composed of the colors of the Macgregor tartan, and as mentioned earlier, the medal can be worn around the neck on uniform, on ceremonial parades, on occasions prescribed by the respective services. All the medals are issued named with around the outer rim is inscribed the year of award, the rank, initials, name and regiment of the medalist, followed by the words "for valuable reconnaissance" or "for valuable work," as the case may be. And the word "especially" is actually added in the case of gold medals that are awarded. Now, while it's not possible to trace the exploits of each recipient of this extraordinary medal, and indeed, apart from a brief booklet, little is known about the distinguished awardees, and even less about the important and often hazardous reconnaissance work that was done by them, for which the medal was awarded. By its very nature, much of this work was confidential, if not clandestine. Most of the reports that were generated are not available in the public domain. So I'll, however, endeavor to touch upon just a few so as to give an indication of the kind of acts of adventure, exploration and reconnaissance that have led to these awards. Now, Major Bob Hammond, who starts his book on the history of the Macgregor Medal, begins with a quote from Kipling's poem, The Winners. And I quote, "Down to Gehenna, Jahannam, or up to the throne, he travels the fastest who travels alone." Now, this sentiment epitomizes the spirit that infused most recipients of this unique award. They usually had a love of the outdoors and exulted in the wide open spaces in the deserts or mountains along India's vast and remote frontiers. I've already mentioned the awards to Francis Younghusband and Orde Wingate. Younghusband had carried out a recce and survey of the route from Leh to Kashgar in 1889, mapping the mountains and passes en route. And his secret report titled Recce 1889 in Chinese Turkestan and to Kashmir via Karakoram resulted in the 1890 award of the Macgregor Medal. He had previously traveled from Manchuria to Beijing to the Gobi Desert to Chinese Turkmenistan and Kashmir when only 23 years old. In 1903, he commanded the Indian Army expedition to Lhasa. Major General Orde Wingate was awarded a special gold medal for his war reconnaissances carried out as part of the first Chindit operation in occupied Burma in 1943. His expedition behind enemy lines had set a new standard in special operations and reconnaissance, and it was instrumental in opening up a new method of warfare hitherto considered beyond the realm of possibility. He sadly did not live to receive his medal, as he was killed in an air crash in March 1944. Now, the MacGregor Medal has been awarded to escapees, including escaped prisoners of war, who not only managed to escape from the clutches of their captors, but they brought back invaluable information in the process. Two such recipients were Subedar Tikendra Bahadur Limbu, MC of the Northern Shan States Battalion of the Burma Frontier Force. He led 40 men of his battalion on a 3-month-long journey through enemy-occupied territory, covering 600 miles on foot from the Wa states in Myanmar to Margarita in Assam. He was awarded the MacGregor Medal in 1942. The other escapee awardee was Havildar Dhirta Singh, IDSM of the 4th Battalion 11th Sikh Regiment. He was captured at the fall of Tobruk in North Africa in 1942 and escaped along with 3 other men and led them to safety through enemy lines without a map or a compass. He traversed nearly 400 miles in 20 days and brought back invaluable information about German movements and positions, and was awarded the MacGregor Medal in 1943. A word now about India's strategic frontiers. For a long time, Indian military thinkers have recognized that our country's commanding geostrategic location meant that India's strategic frontiers were seen to lie at the Straits of Malacca and the Red Sea. The great game that was so central to the institution, that's the USI, and its history, is adequately represented in the countries and regions where recipients of the MacGregor Medal undertook their journeys of exploration and reconnaissance. Awards of the medal after independence have continued to focus for a large part on areas of strategic influence for India's national defense, and the changing dynamics of India's security concerns and their correlation and interaction with its strategic neighborhood are reflected in the nature of the awards made since 1947. Now, in closing, I'd just like to show a few more of the remarkable soldiers who received this extraordinary award over the year. Here you can see Dafidar, later Risaldar, OBI Shehzad Mir of Probin's Horse, and this intrepid explorer accompanied Sir Mortimer Durand on the Afghan Boundary Commission. He also undertook numerous dangerous journeys of exploration, including from Ladakh to Beijing, as well as missions in Somaliland, Kabul, Abyssinia, Central Africa, and Tibet. It's quite a remarkable itinerary for any period, particularly when you think of the times that these were undertaken in. The next recipient of the award in 1904 is Dafidar Mughalbaz of the Queen Victoria's Own Corps of Guides. He is undoubtedly one of the most distinguished recipients of this award was Khan Bahadur Risaldar Mughalbaz Khan, OBE, IOM, IDSM, a retired political agent, a member of the Public Service Commission Mardan in District Peshawar. Mughalbaz was born in 1878 and belonged to the Kuki-Khel section of Afridi tribe. His father, Risaldar Turabaz Khan, had joined the Guides Cavalry and died in 1896 after 34 years of distinguished service, and Mughalbaz replaced him in the regiment. He, for that period, was privately educated and was well versed in English, in Urdu, Pashto, Persian, and Arabic. And on his father's death, as I mentioned, he enlisted in the same regiment and was soon promoted to Risaldar. During his military services, he was deputed to carry out survey and intelligence duties, being awarded the IDSM and the MacGregor Medal for meritorious work in this line. On transfer from military service in 1911, he was appointed an extra assistant commissioner, and he was made a Khan Bahadur in 1920 for services in the Third Afghan War, and a Chevalier of the Order of Leopold II from Belgium. In 1926, he received the Kaiser-e-Hind Gold Medal First Class. He's a recipient of the Life-Saving Medal of the Hospital of the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, and he received the thanks of both Houses of Parliament and the Government of India for rescuing Miss Molly Ellis from bandits and conducting Mrs. Starr to safety from the heart of Tira in his capacity as Indian personal assistant to the Chief Commissioner. This was a very, very famous case where this young girl was abducted by a band of Pathan raiders and carried off into the wilds of the northwest frontier. I now come to the 1949 award to Major Zoru Bakshi of the 2nd Battalion, 5th Gorkha Rifles. Major Bakshi received the award for an important strategic military reconnaissance of the northern regions in 1949, and he travelled from Nathula into the Chumbi Valley, proceeding to Gyanse and Lhasa over several high passes, covering a distance of over 400 kilometers in 80 days. He later retired as a Lieutenant General in 1979 and was one of India's most highly decorated soldiers, having received the PVSM, the Mahavir Chakra, the Veer Chakra and the VSM. I next come to the 1958 award to Captain S.L. Tugnet of the Regiment of Artillery. He had carried out a valuable military reconnaissance again in northern Ladakh, covering the route from Leh over the 21,000 feet Changla into the Shyok River Valley to Pongyang So. From there he went to Kazi, Haji Langar, the Karatag Pass, and returned by the Karakoram Pass to DBO Daulat Beg Oldi, Saser Kangri, over the Saserla and into the Nubra Valley and back to Leh. For those of us who served in those areas before the extraordinary communication and transport infrastructure that exists today, this was undoubtedly a truly remarkable journey. In 1969, we have here pictured Brigadier M.L. Vig, again a Mahavir Chakra of the 2nd 5th Gorkha Rifles, and he carried out 4 important military recces in the central Himalayas from 1956 to 1962, mapping extensive areas on foot. And none perhaps better epitomize this spirit of adventure than one of the most well-known recipients of this award, Colonel Narendra Kumar of the Kumaon Regiment. Colonel Narendra Kumar was born in December 1933 in Rawalpindi, and he was the first Indian apart from Tenzing Norgay to cross 28,000 feet, actually over 8,500 meters, and only 8 men in the world had then climbed higher. In 1965, he handled the logistics for India's first successful expedition to Everest, which placed 9 men on the summit, then a record. And he led the first successful expedition to Nanda Devi, then the highest mountain in India, and to Chomalhari, the highest peak in Bhutan. In 1931, a German expedition attempted Kanchenjunga from the northeast spur, and they reached the height of 25,000 feet. At that time, the British Alpine General had described the German attempt as a feat without parallel in mountaineering history. It was awarded a special gold medal at the Los Angeles Olympics. Colonel Kumar's team had succeeded in reaching the summit of Kanchenjunga over 8,500 meters from this difficult and dangerous route. And this achievement was described by the American, Japanese, and Swiss alpine journals as one of the greatest achievements in mountaineering history. Colonel Narendra Kumar was the first person to cross the Siachen Glacier from snout to source, and he led the summit team to Sia Kangri at a height of 7,300 meters. And at the age of 46, his team had climbed the Saltoro Kangri at a height of 25,000 feet. This is the highest peak in the eastern Karakorams, and he was later the principal of the National Ski School and led the Ski Trishul expedition in 1976, which had skied down from 23,000 feet to a base camp at 15,000 feet. Those who have served on the world's highest battlefield in Operation Meghdut will know that the largest camp on the main Siachen Glacier is named Camp Kumar, after this intrepid mountaineer and soldier. So, given the nature of the eligibility criteria where most of the awards have been made to the Army, in recent years, Navy and Air Force personnel have also been given the medal. And I hope that this presentation will help shed some light on this extraordinary award and on the long line of distinguished soldiers who have had the honor to receive it. The journeys of exploration and military reconnaissance carried out by them in some of the world's most difficult terrain and often under extremely hazardous conditions are the stuff of legend. And long may their legacy of adventure and commitment to exploring new frontiers persevere in the Indian Armed Forces. Thank you.